Welcome, I'm Halcyon, this is Hug Nation. Today I want to talk about my adventure to Australia. There is a Western Australia regional Burning Man event called Blazing Swan. And I received an email where someone showed me that the map that they're using this year has a street name called Halcyon. And it seemed like a sign that I should go to this event. So within days, I had packed up and got a plane ticket and made new friends online that were going to help me once I got to Australia, and got on a plane, traveled to Sydney, then to Perth, and then drove to a little city 3 hours from Perth. Very remote. They call it Kulin Rock City. The event started out with a Indigenous people ceremony. Some local elders came and did a greeting and a blessing, and they started a sacred fire that they invited us to put in eucalyptus leaves and bless ourselves, and which was a beautiful way to start this event on this beautiful sacred land. And the land was surreal. It was like a diorama made by God for humans to play in. It had this miniature rock mountain that looked like a Joshua tree sculpture that you could climb in about 10 minutes. And from there, at the top of it, you could see all sorts of, you could see forever in all directions. And so you could see the red land and the funky weird trees, and you could see the salt lake that was right next to the event, that while we were there was covered in about a half inch of water, so it reflected and looked like a sea, even though there was no real water there, which made the sunsets incredible. Because when the sun would set, there'd be the color from the sunset, which then would reflect on the east, and then color would reflect in the water. So you'd have almost like 3 sunsets at once. Now, we didn't get sunsets every night because it rained most of the time I was there, which made it muddy and wacky and forced us to surrender, which is a perfect environment for a burning experience. And the stars were incredible. I'd actually never seen stars like this, partially because I'd never seen stars from this part of the world. I didn't even realize that the stars are different from the other side of the world. There's no North Star, there's a Southern Cross, and you see the Milky Way like a band of powder across the sky, because you're seeing the Milky Way at like a plate from the side. So there's a dark spot, patch, and then there's this light band, and then there's more darkness. It's amazing. Because there's no light pollution and you're so far from everything, I'd never seen such dramatic stars before. Their version of the man is a swan, and this year was actually 2 swan who were like kissing, and their necks formed a heart. It was beautiful. You could climb up in it, and they projected like cool visuals on it at night. And the other big grand structure there was a temple, and they had made this very cool, it was like a spiral pyramid that you could climb up and around up into the top of it. It was gorgeous, and gave you this high vantage point to see the city around you. And the temple became a lot more significant to me than I would have thought, because while I was there, I received news of several deaths. 2 people that I've known through the Burning Man community and through festivals and through adventures passed on while I was there. Aaron Storm and Nicholas Alvarado. And it was a weird thing to be so far from a support network of, my established support network. I was around many people who are loving and wonderful, but to be in a strange place, in a strange land, and processing this loss. So I was so grateful to have the temple, this sacred place that its sole purpose was to receive whatever meaning and purpose that we needed to put on it. And I needed a place to process death. And so I went to the temple and I wrote messages, and because Nicholas was also known as Pumpkin, an amazing DJ, I went up to the top of the temple and I played on a Bluetooth speaker my favorite remix of his, which was No Rain by Blind Melon. And I played it up on top of the temple and just cried. And I said some words, and just, it was a powerful experience for me. And it really helped me to turn this jarring, painful loss into a celebration, into a recognition of how many gifts these people gave to the world and how they impacted me and how the ripples of their life continue into the world through all of the people that we've touched. And so I was able to celebrate their lives and then kind of come out of the temple back into the city and celebrate life and celebrate this moment and celebrate everyone that I was interacting with. And the event was incredible. It was like a small version of Burning Man. It was like maybe a few blocks. Maybe if you could maybe take 8:30 to 9:30 BDG and take that neighborhood out of the burn and throw it into Australia. It was like that, like very active theme camps, lots of participation. And it reminded me a lot of a regional in the US, like Utopia in San Diego. It was very much like that, where it was small enough that you could interact with people over and over again and know that you could find people throughout the day. And a very high level of participation, which I was so impressed by. I got to participate in the Unicorn Parade. I was a last-minute entrant in the Chonies Pants Off Dance Off, where I learned that Australians go hard, and I do not have what it takes to win the Pants Off Dance Off. I went to tons of dance parties and spent a night rolling around in a ball pit. I gave 2 talks while I was there at a place called Shiva's Tea House, which was filled with just amazing people, and got to really use the vibe of the place to help articulate and form ideas and thoughts, and almost like as a communal wisdom sharing. I performed a marriage while I was there. I was gifted countless meals and hugs, and just every time I needed anything, people were coming out of the woodwork, and anything that I expressed in advance that I might need, people just came and brought it by. And I ended up renting a caravan or a camper van so I could sleep off the ground. I'm very grateful for it because I didn't have to deal with the possible wet tent that some people did. I really learned a lot about radical self-reliance. I'm like, how can you be radical self-reliant when you fly to an event like this? You need so much stuff. And I really realized that it's a different type of radical self-reliance. And every version of radical self-reliance is really a spectrum. Unless you're, sewing your own clothes and building your own vehicle and, farming all your own food, you are depending on other people. You are radically self-reliant in that you are forming relationships and connections so that you can get your needs met. Whether you work on your car or you hire a mechanic or you deal with your car once it breaks down, one way or another, you are radically self-reliant for your vehicle. And there's all different ways that are appropriate and correct and within the principles to do so. So for this experience, I developed people that I was radically reliant on. It really helped me to understand that radical self-reliance can be a communal experience, not just meaning a solo experience. It means that you're not going to be a burden on someone, and so you do whatever is required in terms of preparation or relationship making or money earning in advance to try to make it so that you can be reliant. And I learned that I think I could do this anywhere. And I really want to try to experience more burns and more of the Burning Man community around the world now. It rained almost every day, and I'm so grateful for that, because just like dust storms at the burn, it forces everyone to surrender. It forces everyone to let go of their plans and go with the flow and deal with the mud and not wear the outfits that you thought you were going to wear and huddle together into safe, dry spaces, just like you might in a tent during a windstorm at Burning Man. And that tone of surrender is very deep into the very nature of Blazing Swan. It's only been going 3 years, but its first year when they were trying to find a location, the first place that they had worked out, as they were just getting ready to sign the contract with the landowner said, you know what, they were a very religious person. They said, I need to sleep on this and pray, so let me just confirm tomorrow. And tomorrow came around and they said, you know what, I'm sorry, I have to back out. God says no. And people were like, what? But they went with it, rolled with it, and very quickly found a new location, the location it's in now, which is so perfect and so cool. And so that phrase of God says no is almost like a guiding tone. There's a camp even called God Says No, this cool, massive, pyramidal, black-lit dance floor called God Says No. Because as God says no to some things, God says yes to others. And it's such a critical part of the Burning Man experience that you need to remember and remind yourself that you don't know what's best. Sometimes what you think, it has to happen this way, then God says no. And a direction that you maybe aren't sure about, you realize God says yes. And for me, this whole adventure was filled with God says yes, God says yes, God says yes, God says yes, God says yes. Wait, I don't know about this. God says yes. Over and over, people would come up to me and say, so what do you think? And how does this compare to the burn? And very hard question to answer because it's so different in scale. 2,500 people at Blazing Swan versus 70,000 people at Burning Man. It just, if everything else was identical, that magnitude changes everything. But if I compare it to a regional event in the US, it was incredibly similar. And I was blown away with how quickly I felt at home. Sure, they talk kind of funny over there, but the attitudes and the camaraderie and the family and the participation and the love and the art, it was like being at Burning Man, or at least being on a small neighborhood within Burning Man. I used to think that regional events were kind of like practice grounds or a farm league or a place where people could dip their toe in the Burning Man world without fully committing, where you could learn about how to be a burner. But what I learned is that I was wrong. These people were not learning how to be burners. These people are burners. They went full tilt, full bore, massive commitment, massive participation, and I am inspired and encouraged that this is possible. You don't have to go to the big burn and see the scale of it to have your mind blown. You can have your mind blown in tiny moments, in massive intention, which I saw all over the place. I realized that Burning Man is not scalable. Everyone in the world cannot attend Burning Man, but everyone in the world can attend a regional, and I now know, I've seen it, that you can have the same mind-blowing, world-changing experience when you have a committed community practicing the principles. I cannot wait to see it all over the world and meet more of my family all over the world. It is incredible how touching, encouraging, and inspiring it is to know that I can travel to the other side of the planet and within moments feel like I'm home. So thank you to the Blazing Swan community. People kept saying, are you going to come back? Are you going to come back? And, I don't know. I would love to. And in fact, if that was the only regional event, I would definitely go back. But now I realize that I want to go around the world more. I want to have more conversations with people who are just discovering this world and talk through what the principles mean, talk through what gifting is. And I want to maybe be more of a community elder on a global scale and learn what there is to learn from people who are experiencing the principles from their unique perspectives as well.